Okay. वो लैपटॉप मुझे शटडाउन करके स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं कनेक्ट हो गए थे Good morning, everyone. First of all, apologies for the delay in starting. When you're all set, technology decides that there will be a problem. So, anyways, I hope we have been able to get over that problem, and therefore we can start the start what we are here for. The agenda for today: time and work. Right? Sometimes the work takes extra time to start, but anyways. Now, this is one of the most important topics in any aptitude examination. No matter how difficult or how easy an exam is, you will always have questions. Okay, so hopefully we are back. I'm back live again, hopefully. I know. Yeah. On the chat, if you could just give a thumbs up if you can see and hear me. Hmm. So, as I was saying, important topic and how we would. Great. So, how we would want to bifurcate this topic into subtopics depends on uh, how I want to see it. But I think one uh, efficient way of doing it is simply saying that when we talk about the concept of work and time, there is something that by default creeps in is called efficiency, right? So the amount of work that I can do in a given time will be called efficiency. For example, if I sit down to solve questions in maths, और मैं 50 questions solve कर लेता हूँ एक दिन में, my efficiency becomes 50 questions. Someone else might do something else. My friend does 60 questions in a day. His efficiency is 60 questions. So if I have to look at work being done by me or my friend, the time will vary because our efficiencies are different. The other case could be when we say, okay, say a group of people are trying to build a wall, for example, and substituting one person by the other does not have a change in time. Everyone knows how to work and they work at a similar pace, right? And therefore, what I'm saying is, when we look at questions in time and work, broadly speaking, there will be two types of questions. One, based on the concept of equal efficiency, the other based on the concept of unequal efficiency. Equal efficiency means 5 men doing a job. Instead of that, I make 6 people work on the same job. How will the time change? Now, when I say 5 men and 6 men, the sixth person who has been added works at the same rate as each of the persons who were earlier working. Equal efficiency, right? Unequal efficiency will be, as I said, me and my friend. 50 questions, 60 questions. अगर हम लोग का मैं टाइम देखूंगा कौन कैसे काम करेगा, those will be questions based on unequal efficiency. Obviously, both types of questions will be treated differently, and therefore that becomes my bifurcation. Eventually, what I can also do is I can have equal efficiency groups, and the groups being unequal efficiency. For example, I can say 5 men and 10 women. So the men among themselves have equal efficiency, men and women have different efficiency. So I might club both of these things to have a third type of a question. So that is my bifurcation of, or the boundary of what we want to do. Starting with the concept of equal efficiency. Now, when we look at questions on equal efficiency, the questions majorly boil down to the idea of variation. What is variation? Variation is how two variables vary with respect to each other. Variation can be direct or inverse. What is direct and inverse variation? Just to give you a brief, direct variation is distance is equal to speed into time. Okay, we know this. Now, if I say how is distance and speed related when time is constant? अगर I am traveling for a given amount of time and I increase my speed, the distance that I cover will also increase. अगर if I am traveling for 2 hours, मैं 60 की स्पीड से ट्रैवल करूंगा, I will cover 120 kilometers. But if I travel with the speed of 90, I will cover 180 kilometers. This kind of a variation is called direct variation. Distance is directly proportional to speed. What is inverse variation? For a given distance, मतलब घर से लेके स्कूल, home to tuition ले लो चाहे, the distance is same. पर अब जब जाते टाइम कम लगता है, जब आते टाइम ज्यादा लगता है. क्यों? जब जाते हैं लेट हो रहे तो स्पीड हाई होती है, जब आते हैं तो दोस्तों के साथ आराम से आ रहे होते हैं, स्पीड लो हो जाती है. So if I look at the relationship between speed and time for a given distance, how will speed and time vary with respect to each other? The faster you move, the quicker you will be able to cover a distance. The slower you move, उतना ज़्यादा time लगेगा. So as speed of travel increases, time required to cover a distance decreases. इसको हम लिखते हैं speed is proportional to inverse of time. Inverse relation. ठीक? This is how variation happens. It could be direct or inverse. हमको याद क्या रखना है? In a direct variation, you will see that d by s will be constant. Because मैं इसको d is equal to ks लिख सकता हूँ, constant into speed. So in a direct relation, the ratio of the two variable remains constant. In an inverse relation, s into t will be constant. और देखो लॉजिकल सी बात है, जब डायरेक्ट रिलेशन है, स्पीड डबल होगी तो डिस्टेंस भी डबल होगा, उनका रेशियो तो सेम ही रहेगा, which will be time. In inverse variation, if the speed doubles, the time will become half, and therefore that product will remain constant, which is the distance. तो याद रखने वाली बात ये और ये है. Direct variation ratio is same, inverse variation product is same. Now what we'll do is, when we talk of work or a set of people doing a given amount of work, we will identify the variables and look at the relationship between them. What will be the variables? First will be the number of people. Typically, I will refer to them as the number of men doing a work. Second will be कितने दिन काम कर रहे हैं, number of days that they are working. Third will be number of hours that they work. यार आप एक दिन में 6 घंटे काम करोगे, वैसे एक दिन में 8 घंटे काम करोगे, अमाउंट ऑफ वर्क अलग अलग होगा, या फिर नंबर ऑफ डेज चेंज हो जाएंगे. So number of men, days that they work, hours per day, and the amount of work that has to be done. In चारों में we will try to find a relationship, two at a time, obviously. So if I look at number of men and the number of days required to do a work, यार एक काम खत्म करना है मेरे को, सपोज मुझे एक वॉल बनानी है. If more people work on the job, हम लोग को वो जॉब खत्म करने में टाइम कम लगेगा, ज्यादा लगेगा. अगर ज्यादा लोग काम करेंगे तो काम जल्दी खत्म हो जाएगा, and therefore the number of men will be inversely proportional to the number of days, right? अगर कम लोग काम करेंगे तो उनको ज्यादा दिन काम करना पड़ेगा, एक वेरिएबल कम हो रहा है, दूसरा बढ़ रहा है. So number of men inversely proportional to number of days. और इनवर्स प्रोपोर्शनल में मुझे पता है प्रोडक्ट सेम होता है. So when I look at number of men m and the number of days d to do a work, I can say m into d is constant, right? And therefore for two situations I can say m1 d1 is equal to m2 d2. अब वो सिचुएशन क्या होगी? सबसे बेसिक एक एग्जांपल है, 20 men can do a piece of work in 10 days. In how many days? 5 men do the same work. 20 men do the work in 10 days. In how many days will 5 men do the same work? Because logically speaking, because the number of men has gone from 20 to 5, it has become 1/4. So the number of days should be 4 times. Absolutely. Right? Logical baat. But if I want to write the equation, I'll say initially number of men is 20, number of days is 10. So they are working for 20 into 10, 200 man days. And that should remain constant. So 20 into 10, m1 d1 is equal to 5 into x. So x will be 200 by 540. Obviously ये क्वेश्चन नहीं आएगा एग्जाम में, पर पहले दो वेरिएबल्स का रिलेशनशिप सेट हो गया. Next, a similar sort of question says a garrison. Garrison क्या होता है उसका मतलब मुझे पता नहीं, मुझे पता करना भी नहीं, because मेरे आंसर में उसका फर्क नहीं पड़ता. Has sufficient provisions. Provisions could be food for 480 men to last 12 days. तो कोई तो जगह है जहाँ पे there is food enough for 480 men to last 12 days. Number of men, number of days. If the number of men reduces by 160, not reduces to but reduces by 160. So there was a number of men, उसमें से 160 कम कर दिया, लोग कम हो गए. How long will the food last now? Because fewer people are using the provisions. The provisions will last for a longer amount of time. And therefore, like the previous question, I can say m1 d1 will be equal to m2 d2 absolutely. देखो m1 जो है initially 480 men were there for 12 days, but now the number of men reduced by 160. 480 reduced by 160 will be 320. 320 into x, या फिर you can also write it as d. 160 3s are 160 2s are 2 6s are. So number of days that the food will last now, yes, it will be 18 days. Very good. Again, ये question भी आएगा नहीं, but ठीक है. At least पहले दो उसमें relationship establish हो गया. Now comes the concept of hours per day. So we are trying to find the relationship between number of men working on a job and the hours per day that they work. Number of men को मैंने बोला n, hours per day को मैंने बोला h. If everything else is the same, the number of days that they are working is constant, the amount of work that they are doing is also constant, how will m and h vary? To do a job in a given number of days, if every person starts working for more number of hours per day, हर आदमी 6 की जगह 8 घंटे काम करना चालू करता है, will I need more men or fewer men? If everyone works for more number of hours, obviously I need fewer people to work, right? Therefore, m and h are inversely related. एक ये relationship I get. If again I look at number of days that everyone is working and number of hours that they work, तो अगर मैं अपने सिलेबस की बात करूं, अगर I study for more number of hours every day, will my syllabus finish faster or slower? अगर रोज ज्यादा पढ़ूंगा तो सिलेबस जल्दी खत्म होगा, लेट खत्म होगा? Obviously it will finish faster, right? So if I increase the number of hours that I study every day, the number of days required to finish a job will decrease. H increases, D decreases, and vice versa. Therefore, D is also inversely proportional to H. जहाँ पे inverse proportionality होती है, वहाँ पे product same रहता है. Because M and D both are inversely proportional to H, I can safely say that M DH तीनों का जो product है, that will be same for a given amount of work. if you come to think of it, you will realize that this product MDH is nothing but the amount of work that has been done. So, for example, if I say every person does 1 unit of work in every hour, right? Up, if I then add that there are 20 men who are working 6 hours per day for 5 days, what is the amount of work that they can finish? Because every person is doing 1 unit of work every hour. इसका मतलब every person will do 6 units of work in a day. Because there are 20 men, तो एक दिन में 20 into 6 units करेंगे, and this will repeat for 5 days into 5. ये total work ही तो और क्या है, right? And therefore MDH will remain constant. So if I again in the previous setup question add the information and I say 20 men working for 5 hours per day can do a job in 10 days. So number of men is there, hours per day is there, number of days is there. In how many days 5 men can do the same work working 2 hours per day? You can use proportionality, you can use the concept of saying that the amount of work is same, so equate kar do. Or you can simply write the formula that is written m1 d1 hl is equal to m2 d2 h2. So 20 men, 5 hours per day, h, 10 days. So 20 into 10 into 5 is equal to 5 men, 2 hours, 5 into x. X is the number of days into 2. So this becomes the number of days, okay? So 20 into 10 into 5 will be how much? 5 cancel, 2 and 20 cancel. 10 into 10, 100 days becomes the answer. बिल्कुल ठीक है. ये देखिए सिमिलर लाइंस पे क्वेश्चन. A garrison of 60 soldiers had sufficient food to last for 80 days. A reinforcement of 40 soldiers joined the garrison. The daily ration was reduced to 3/4 of the earlier ration. So here, if I look at the variables, initially there were 60 men. Now 40 are added, so there are 100 men. Initially the number of days was 80. We have to find a new number of days. The third change is, earlier suppose everyone was having 1 unit of ration. Now they're having 3/4 of ration. So number of men increases, the amount of food that they eat every day or hours per day that they work decreases. I have to find the number of days. Any answer to this one? So here what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, initially if I look at it, we have 60 people, 60 soldiers. Suppose they're eating 1 unit of ration. This could be 1 kg of rice, for example, every day. And they are eating this for 80 days. So this is the amount of ration that I have, M1, D1, H1. Now, 40 soldiers are added. So 60 plus 40 becomes 100. The ration that they're eating every day is not 1, but 3/4 of what they were eating. So instead of 1 kg, you eat 3/4 of a kg. So 3/4. And we have to find the number of days. So this is what I'm solving. 0, 0 cancel. 0, 0 cancel. 3 2s are 6. So D becomes 2 into 8 into this 4. 4 2s are 8. 8 2s are 8 8s are 64. While you are solving questions, do not calculate intermediate values, right? There is no point of multiplying 60, 80 and 1 because eventually to cancel out karna hi hai. So the multiplication or whatever that happens in the end when I know what are my final numbers left, and typically they will be smaller numbers. Finally, concept wise, what if the work is unequal? till now we were looking at a case where the work was same in both cases. What if the work to be done is different? So again, I would want to find the relationship of each of M, D and H with W. What will happen to the amount of work done in a given number of days if the number of men working increases? अगर ज्यादा लोग काम करेंगे, amount of work done will increase. अगर लोग ज्यादा दिन काम करेंगे, again amount of work done will increase. And if everyone works for more hours per day, then also amount of work done will increase. So each of M, D and H is directly proportional with W, the amount of work done, और direct proportion में ratio same होता है, and therefore the final equation that I get looks something like this: M1 D1 H1 upon W1 is equal to M2 D2 H2 upon W2. 1 and 2 are the two conditions to be compared. M is the number of men working, D is the number of days that they are working, H is the number of hours per day that they are working, W is the amount of work that needs to be done. Again, a basic setup question. The same information that we were using: 20 men working 5 hours per day and who are working 10 days. In how many men? How many days? 5 men can do double the work. The amount of work has changed. Working 2 hours per day. If you remember the previous answer, which was, I think, 100, you would connect with the fact that अब amount of work double हो गया है, so number of days double हो जाएगा, बाकी सब तो same ही रहेगा. So if your previous answer was 100, you should be able to figure out that the current answer will be 200, right? But again, we will write the equation from scratch and see. So I'm saying M1 D1 H1. M1 is 20, D1 is 10, H1 is 5. There is no value for the amount of work to be done. So we are saying let this be W itself, or you can write it 1 as well, whatever you want. This is then equated to number of men is now 5, number of days X is to be calculated, hours per day is 2, and the amount of work is double of what this was. So if this is 1, this will be 2. After this we solve to get X is 200. Right? Now is where the questions start. So in this, till now what was happening was, or all the type of question that I had written, the situations were same, so we simply compared. Now a change happens after a period of time, and this is where I say, now we're talking of questions that you can expect in exams. 120 men had provisions for 200 days. After 5 days, 30 men died of an epidemic. The food will last for further. Because initially there was food for 200 days. But at one point, the number of a few men were removed from the group. The food will now last for a longer amount of time. So what is that duration is to be found out. Take a couple of minutes and try to answer. So here what I'm doing is I'm saying there are two approaches. First is, see, 120 men had provisions for 200 days. They started consuming the provisions. What will happen after 5 days? How much food will be left? At this point, out of 200 days, 5 days worth of food has been consumed. So the food now left is 120 men, and they can have this food for 195 days. Right? But this is not the case. Sorry. But this is not the case. Instead of 120 men, we have fewer number of men because some soldiers passed away. 30 men died in an epidemic. So now the number of men left is just 90. How many days will they consume the food is to be calculated. Can we do this? So basically this becomes my condition. M1 D1 is equal to M2 D2. 3 4s are 12, 3 3s are 9, 65, 260. So after the first 5 days, the food should have lasted for 195 days, but instead it will last for 260 days. And therefore, how long will the food last further? Answer is 260. The question might also ask you, how many days does the food last in total? In which case the answer will be 260 plus 5 or 265. So always read that last line of the question again to be sure of which value is being asked for. Again, this is not an approach that I will suggest that you use, because when the changes are multiple, this becomes cumbersome. Instead of this approach, we will use an equation directly, right? So how do I make an equation? I say the food that was there was for 120 men to be used for 200 days. But this is not how it was used. Instead, 120 men consumed the food for the first 5 days, and then 30 men went away. So 90 men consumed the food for the remaining D amount of days. I get an equation in D, one equation, one variable. I'll get the answer of D is 260. I hope this is fine. If this is, then I have the next question. This okay? Okay. If we have multiple changes, yes. 120 men, provisions for 20 days. After 5 days, 30 men added to the group. After 5 more days, 10 men left the group. The food will last for how many days in total? Yes. Again, take a couple of minutes. Try to answer this question. The process remains pretty much the same. And as I was saying, what the two approaches that we looked at in the previous question, the first approach here will be cumbersome because I'll have to use that equation twice. Right? Right? Instead, I will use the second approach. And in that case, I should get one equation which will give me a value for the answer. For the answer, not the answer. I'm sorry. So what do we do here? If I look at the timeline of what is happening, sorry, for the first 5 days, there are the full 120 men. At this point, 30 men are added. So 120 plus, now we have 150 men using the provisions. This goes on for 5 more days. At this point, 10 men left the group. 150 minus 10 is 140. Suppose this happened for D number of days. This is how actually the provisions of the food was consumed. So I make the equation into what was supposed to happen is equal to what actually happened. What was supposed to happen was 120 men were supposed to consume the food for 20 days. But instead, how the food was consumed was 120 men consumed the food for 5 days. Then 150 men consume the food for 5 days, and then 140 men consume the food for remaining 3 days. This is how the food got finished, right? So there is one variable, one equation I should be able to solve. I am multiplying 2400, 600, 750, 140D. This becomes 1350. So 1050 is equal to 140D. 0 cancel, D is equal to 105 by 14. 7 15s are 105, 7 2s are 14, 7.5. So the value of D is 7.5. The question had asked me how many days does the food last in total? Not how many days does the food last further, but total. So for the first 5 days, 120 men. For the next 5 days, 150 men. For the next 7.5 days, 140 men. And therefore, total, the food lasts for 5 plus 5 plus 7.5 or 17.5 days. I hope this is fine. We take this further after this. What if the change that happens? What if the change that happens is at every step? So at least till now we had a equation to go by. Now I'm removing that equation as well. The question says 20 men can do a job in 10 days. Right? But what happens is the work starts. One man will be added. Sorry. One man will be added to the group after every day starting from the first day. So if only 20 men keep on working, the work gets finished in 10 days. That is what is given to me. But that is not how the work is done in this case. How the work is done is, on the first day, 20 men come for work. On the second day, one person is added, so 21 men come for work. On the third day, 22 people come for work, and so on. So if the work happens in this manner, in how many days will the work get finished? Again, to give you a starting point, there is no equation per se, there is no shortcut per se. You are just doing a hit and trial. So you know the total amount of work. We'll keep adding the daily work until we reach a point where the work gets finished. The answer for this question will not be integral. It will be a mixed fraction. Take a couple of minutes and try to answer this question. कोई बात नहीं बता रहा तो देखो इसमें हम क्या करेंगे पहले first of all I'll define the total amount of work that is to be done. If 20 men work for 10 days, assuming that every person does only 1 unit of work per day, so the total work that is to be done is 20 men, 200 units. है ना? Assuming that every person is doing 1 unit of work per day. अभी वर्क हो कैसे रहा है? On day 1, 20 units of work gets done.